Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Oncology Data Advisor podcast and our technology theme for this month. I'm Waqas Haque. I'm a fellow at U Chicago, and we're joined today by Dana Brown, who's the CEO of iCAD Med. Thanks for joining, Dana.
Oh, thank you for having us.
So let's get right to it. Just tell us sort of briefly before your background of joining iCAD Med, what were you doing, and sort of how did you sort of come to iCAD?
Yeah. Um, well, my entire career, I've been in software and technology, always in a variety of industry segments. So did some work in banking and insurance, did work for a long time in telecom and media, then moved into content delivery. And then around 2011, I decided I was going to retire from technology, just a little burnt out. And so began to do a little bit of work with private equity and
Mhm.
venture capital firms on kind of more of the investor side, right, than on the operations side. And it was during that time I actually got introduced to a very large nonprofit, which was United Way Worldwide,
Mhm.
and realized that a lot that I had learned about technology could apply to their business. And the area that I felt that I could help the most was in technology used to really engage their donors. And so actually became the first chief digital officer for United Way Worldwide and built a large donor and volunteer engagement platform, actually in conjunction with Salesforce. When I finished that big initiative, it took several years. The Salesforce team asked if they could introduce me to other nonprofits that were looking to do digital transformations. And one of those was Susan G. Komen, which is the world's largest nonprofit in the breast cancer space. And when I met the management team there, I got very excited because I felt like it was taking what I had done in, decades, what I had learned about nonprofits and engaging donors and volunteers, very mission focused. But the nice thing about Komen was they were actually looking to get even closer to the patient or to the beneficiary, right, of the nonprofit services. So it felt like it kind of came full circle. So I spent just under 5 years at Susan G. Komen as their chief strategy and operations officer. So learned so much about breast health, breast cancer, from both the patient point of view, as well as everyone that's involved in the care journey. And so it was through that role that I got introduced to iCAD. I actually approached to join their board. And when I learned a bit more about what iCAD did, the solutions that they have, I had two thoughts. One was, I can't believe I haven't heard this before. It kind of felt like I know everything that's happening in the breast cancer space. And number two, when I understood their technology, I felt like it was really providing a missing link, or I
Mhm.
often refer to it as forensic evidence, because it's actually looking at images, almost like looking at your fingerprint, right?
Right.
It was really telling you what's happening inside the body. And so I was like, I would love to, be a part of this solution in this team. So joined the board first,
Right.
and then about 18 months ago, stepped into this role full time.
Yeah, congratulations on stepping into the role. And sounds like you had a great background being in software and then working in the
Yeah.
nonprofit sector. So yeah, definitely a lot of relevant experiences there. And we've seen so many advances in the breast cancer space for diagnosis with,
Oh,
tomosynthesis and
yes.
3D imaging and all these other things going on. For those who don't know as much about iCAD, what are some of the main sort of products and solutions you offer?
Sure. So I would say the core theme through iCAD's solutions are we look at the mammogram. So when we're looking at the mammogram, as I mentioned, right, it's like that forensic evidence, right? It's a snapshot of your breast tissue, your breast vessels as they look today. And so we have AI algorithms that can analyze those images using deep learning and neural networks to find patterns in those images that might not be visible to the human eye. They could be just so subtle, which is fantastic because we know from the American Cancer Society, if we're able to catch breast cancer at its earliest stage possible, then the survivability of the disease goes to 99%. So we want to catch it early when chance of survival is the absolute greatest. and the treatments that are needed are less invasive and less costly. So today, iCAD has 4 solutions, all looking at a mammogram. The first one, our foundation solution, our cornerstone, if you will,
Mhm.
is what we call profound detection. And profound detection answers the question, do I have cancer today? It's the question that gets answered when a woman goes in for her annual screening mammogram. The second solution we have is profound density, and it answers the question, how dense are my breasts? Because number one, over 50% of all breast cancers occur in women with dense breasts. So it's one of the leading risk indicators. But the bad news is many women don't know. We don't go around comparing, so you don't know how you are relative to others. It's not something that's been a standard data element in, your medical record, right? So versus say your blood pressure, or other important metrics about yourself. And when you go in for your screening mammogram, you aren't like having a conversation that you might have with your general practitioner, right? You go in, you normally see just the technician that's actually taking the images, and then you leave, and then you get a report from a radiologist you've never met, right? So you don't have like this conversation and this knowledge. So the second solution answering that is really important. And in fact, the United States, right, is implementing this guideline here in September next month, that all women must be told what their breast density is. The third solution that we have, which is commercially available today outside of the US and in Canada, still working its way through regulatory clearance in the United States, is what we call profound risk. And it also looks at the mammogram image. And whereas detection's algorithm is saying, do you have cancer today? The risk algorithm is looking at all of that, plus a few other factors, input elements, and predicting or projecting the likelihood that you may develop cancer in that interval between your screening mammograms. And then the fourth solution that we have is still under development, so it hasn't been cleared anywhere yet from a regulatory standpoint, but it is looking at the mammogram and answering the question, what is my risk of heart disease? Because calcification occurs in breast tissue and breast vessels, which is an indicator of heart disease. And if you're a woman, that's actually the number one killer, right? It's heart disease. Breast cancer is number two. So here we are able from a single mammogram to answer questions about the two most critical diseases facing women today.
Oh, thanks for sharing all that. And just to kind
Yeah,
of go back to the profound breast health,
sure.
uh, the first one you mentioned, yeah, for detection, have you all got any data or any studies that kind of show sort of the improvement of detection or how it may impact patient outcomes?
Yeah. So the detection solution was, we actually received our first FDA clearance for it in 2003. So it's a solution we have been working on improving over the course of 21 years. We're on the 4th generation of the AI algorithm, which has changed a lot. In early days, it was looking at film. Now it's using neural networks and actually looking at like a digitized, right, images. In total, we have over 51 clinical studies. We have over 100 sites around the world that contribute data that we use in training the algorithm or for gaining regulatory clearance. And some of the key benefits, right, of that solution in terms of like, well, what difference does it make, right? How does it help improve? So detection has been proven to be 2 times better performance than other AI platforms. Um, uh, Compared to, say, a human radiologist, it has improvement in the sensitivity. There's actually a reduction in recall rates, meaning less false positives, right? So it's more accurate. So it doesn't say, come back because there might be something wrong. And then only to find out everything is fine. So that's great because that's a very costly service, right, for imaging centers to provide. And then for radiologists themselves, and we know today there's, number one, there's a radiologist shortage combined with what you mentioned, right? An improvement in technology with 3D, which generates hundreds of images per screening exam. We can reduce the reading time by over 50%. So it's a big time saver for a radiologist. And then, if I just kind of net it all out, to me, one of the most impactful stats is it has an improvement of about 23% in terms of cancer detection, without increasing that recall rate. So that's a really high increase in the accuracy of the solution.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. And just in
Mhm.
terms of iCAD generally, like, can you talk to me about a recent partnership or a recent development
Yeah.
that?
So, we are very focused on AI algorithms around detection in the screening mammogram, but we know that radiologists need other solutions in kind of their end-to-end, patient experience, right, and workflow. So this year in 2024, we've actually announced two partnerships that help round out that workflow set of solutions. One is with a company called Densitas. And so Densitas provides solutions around mammogram image quality. So mammogram centers have to pass quality standards. They have to be certified. So Densitas solution can assist with that. And then another example of a partnership is CancerIQ. So where I just talked about a solution we have in development for short-term risk, looking at a mammogram image, CancerIQ provides a lifetime risk model based on TC8. So, there's lots of questions that a patient may have about their risk. Did I inherit, a risk for breast cancer? But we know that over 89% of all breast cancers occur in women that have no family health history. So then therefore, based on other things about me as an individual person, highly personalized, what's my lifetime risk? And that's what CancerIQ delivers. And then we, can answer the question, what's my risk in that interval, right, between screening mammograms? So it's a great question because we are partnering more with technologies that round out that radiologist workflow and enable them to provide, right, a more holistic experience to their patients.
Got it. And then I know you mentioned that you started off in the board at iCAD and you transitioned to being CEO. I was just curious. Now, some of our previous guests have talked about the importance of company culture and driving success
Yes.
of AI and oncology, companies. So what are some defining traits that, drive the success of iCAD or things that you think are really
Yeah.
important?
So, as a part of my coming on board, we've hired a lot of new people. So I would definitely describe iCAD's culture as also in a state of transition from, maybe iCAD of the past. We used to be kind of a two business unit company the two units didn't have a ton in common. So you almost kind of had two personalities happening there to now being a very focused organization, a lot of new people in, a lot more software people, not necessarily very traditional med tech device people, people with a lot of cloud experience and kind of cloud nativeness to the way they think. So, we actually formed a culture team this year. So the question is really timely. And the culture team did a baseline survey of all of our staff. And in fact, last week we had a town hall. No, actually, it was just earlier this week. It was 2 days ago. We had our town hall and they reported the results of that. And probably like every organization, particularly post-COVID, communication is even more critical. And this sense of like belonging and being a part of something, as much as we might like the benefit of not having to get in our cars and having long commutes and, time away from family, flip side is, you have time away from your work family. And how do you even develop, right, that kind of connectedness? So, I would say like, ask me that question again, perhaps in another year when we have a chance to implement some of their recommendations for how to improve communications, how to improve just inclusivity and people feeling like they understand, what's going on and why are we working on this? How does it fit into the big picture? I think from my perspective, I would say I'm very much an early stage and kind of startup person. That's been the majority of my experiences. So we're bringing a little bit of a different sense of urgency and pace. Also this like not this approach of, I call it fail fast, right? So we're trying some new ways of working, new I guess innovations, right, in terms of the product and solutions. So just, feeling like it can be an organization that's a lot more agile. So, but
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Thanks for sharing that. And just
yeah,
final thing, of course, risk and understanding how to make decisions is important for all types
yeah,
of cancer, especially breast cancer, for women deciding if she wants to get a mastectomy or not, or in
yeah,
the adjuvant setting, deciding number of years of endocrine therapy, or,
yeah,
for postmenopausal women, for
yeah.
adjuvant endocrine therapy based on the nodal status, all these different obvious situations. So I'm just curious for breast radiologists and breast oncologists who are in practice who want to learn about integrating AI or learning more
Mhm.
about AI in their workflow. What recommendations do you have for that?
Yeah. Well, my first recommendation would be, talk to your peers. I mean, there's so many great industry conferences, summits. There's SIM, right? There's RSNA, there's SB, the San Antonio Breast Conference,
Right.
HIMSS, like there's so many. And ask someone like an iCAD to introduce them, right, to our KOLs, right? So folks that have kind of been in front of them in terms of going through that learning curve, because it's not overnight. It is a change, right, to their workflow, to their practice. So yeah, my first recommendation is talk to your peers and understand from them lessons learned, and you just to get an understanding or an appreciation for the time it takes to gain that trust, right? So, artificial intelligence is meant to assist, right? To augment. It's not to replace. So, how do they develop that trust and confidence in the algorithm? And that's what their peers, right, can tell them. So we can talk all day about, the best practice from implementing the technology in their network and making sure processing speed time is fast and show them lots of great analytics about how their patient population looks compared to others. But when it comes down to just that human factor of change management, it's talking person to person, all right, to get comfortable.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. Thanks for your time, Dana,
Mm-hmm.
on this podcast, and appreciate you having as a guest today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.